Surababadisir Kiranmihi Enisrai. A perfect circle killed me. A manhole cover flew out of an explosion, struck me in the chest, and I opened my eyes inside another glowing circle while 300 students laughed at my spell. The blue spark above my palm trembled like a cold fly. Then it fell onto the target and left a black dot smaller than a pea. The measuring pillar rang once. 8 units. Examiner Lucan announced. The combat minimum is 20. Fenric has failed. The name entered my head with the rest of the body's memories. Fenric, 18 years old, scholarship student, 12 units of mana, no family, no money, one final chance to remain on the combat course. That chance had just made a sound like a tired doorbell. Laughter rolled down the stone seats. Garen, the best fire student in our year, leaned over the front rail. He wore a red coat with gold buttons and the smile of a man who had already ordered dessert. Try not to burn the academy down, Fenric. More students laughed. The public ranking crystal beside the arena erased my name from the combat list. I dropped from 486th place to unranked before everyone. I looked at Lucan. The rules allow 2 attempts. His mouth tightened. Only when equipment failure is suspected. Your circle was stable. Your magic was simply weak. 10 minutes earlier, Garen had missed the target twice. Lucan had called the first miss a draft and the second one a distraction. Garen had received a 3rd attempt and scored 26. I pointed at the cracked focusing crystal under my station. Its left side was dark. That crystal is damaged. Lucan covered it with his shoe. Do not blame tools for a bad core. Remove your combat badge. The arena quieted enough for me to hear the badge click against the table. Public failure entertained people. Public cruelty made them cautious. Lucan lifted the gray badge of the Theory Division. You will catalog old spell diagrams below the West Library. If you work hard, you may become a copyist. The Academy always needs people who can draw circles for real mages. Garen started clapping. A few students joined him. His father had paid for the new fire hall, and everyone knew Lucan wanted another donation. Fenric's old memories supplied the missing detail. Garen also wanted my scholarship seat for his cousin. It was not personal. That almost made it worse. I took the gray badge. Thank you, I said. Garen blinked. Lucan looked disappointed. They had prepared for begging. Calm acceptance gave them nothing to kick. I walked out while the next student's ice spear scored 31. Behind me, Garen loudly offered to buy my old uniform for 2 silver coins. The crowd laughed again. I had 1 copper coin in my pocket. 2 silver would have been useful. I still did not turn around. The Theory Archive occupied a basement with 1 window and 600 years of dust. Shelves leaned toward each other like old men sharing secrets. Hundreds of rejected spell diagrams filled wooden boxes. Every page showed circles. In this world, a spell began with a circle. The circle held mana stable, while runes told it what to become. Fire, ice, wind, healing, and space all obeyed the same rule. A mage could build the circle before activation. Once mana entered it, the shape could never change. Trying to move an active line caused a backlash. That was not an opinion. It was the first law taught to every child. I sat at the copy desk as evening darkened the small window. My new duty sheet required me to redraw 100 damaged circles before morning. Lucan had signed it personally. I completed the first circle with a piece of white chalk. A calm voice spoke inside my head. It told me that a foreign soul had survived integration. It told me that my class selection had been unlocked. Then it offered 3 paths in a voice as ordinary as someone reading a dinner menu. The first was Architect of Spells. It could create new arrays, but required a mana capacity of at least 100. I had 12. The second was Lord of Geometry. It could strengthen prepared arrays across a wide area, but required a team of linked casters. I had a basement and several spiders. The third was Editor of Magical Forms. The world rated it as an auxiliary class of the lowest rank. It could not create energy or elements. It possessed 1 function. It could alter the geometry of a spell after activation. I stopped breathing for a moment. The voice added that choosing the class could not be reversed. Editor, I said. Warmth passed through my right hand. A thin silver mark appeared across my index finger, straight as a ruler. The Academy registry bell rang upstairs. Every chosen class was announced on the public crystal, and mine spoke loudly enough to reach the basement. Editor of Magical Forms, auxiliary class, lowest rank, recommended occupation, copyist. Students waiting beside the ranking board laughed. Garen's voice carried down the stairs. Fenric found a class weaker than his spark. They heard copyist. I had heard alter a spell after activation. The system explained the price. My mana capacity remained 12. A basic spark consumed 4. Changing an active circle into a triangle cost 3 more. A triangle tripled penetration but reduced stability by half. One active spell allowed 1 geometric edit. At my current level, I had to touch its outer line. Nothing else changed. No legendary sword fell from the ceiling. No ancient dragon offered to become my pet. One spider continued building a web in the corner. It seemed unimpressed. I drew another circle on a slate and placed the spark rune inside it. 4 units of mana left my core. A weak blue light floated above the slate. I touched the chalk line. The silver mark on my finger heated. I pulled 3 sections inward. The glowing circle bent beneath my hand. One side became 3. 3 points locked into place. The spark became a thin blue needle. It crossed the room and punched through the oak door. The crash outside was followed by a short scream. I opened the door. A girl sat on the floor with a stack of books around her. One book had a neat smoking hole through its cover. The needle had stopped inside a bronze shelf support behind her. She looked at the hole. Then she looked at me. Did your failed spark just pierce oak and bronze? It crossed 24 units of resistance. That was not what I asked. Yes. She stood and brushed dust from her dark green dress. Fenric's memories recognized Amaya, the highest-ranked student in magical theory. She had corrected 3 professors in 1 month and had been invited to stop doing it in public. Instead of shouting, she picked up the damaged book and examined the hole. The edge is triangular, she whispered. She pushed past me into the archive. The slate still glowed. The triangle remained visible for another 3 seconds before collapsing into harmless dust. Amaya stared at it until the light vanished. Active arrays cannot change shape. I know. If you knew, you would look more frightened. I already died once today. My schedule is full. She slowly smiled. That was the first time anyone in this world looked at me without pity or amusement. Amaya tested the bronze support. It was rated for 24 units, so that was only the minimum my spark had reached. I had spent 7 mana in total and had 5 left. She made me repeat every step without casting again. She measured the triangle's angles and wrote down 60 degrees at each point. When I told her the system's rule, she did not ask whether I was insane. She asked how many edits I could make. 1 per spell. Touch range. 3 mana for a triangle. Then you are not powerful, she said. That is encouraging. You are dangerous. There is a difference. Footsteps sounded on the basement stairs. Lucan entered with Garen and 6 students from the combat course. Apparently, 2 silver coins had not purchased enough entertainment. Lucan saw the hole in the door. Destroying academy property on your first evening. Garen inspected the mark in the bronze. His smile faded, then returned twice as wide. He used a hidden tool. Search him. Amaya stepped between us. I witnessed the cast. He used a basic spark. Lucan hesitated. Her testimony mattered. Her mother sat on the city research board. Garen laughed, then let him repeat it upstairs, in front of the ranking crystal. I had 5 mana. The triangle cast required 7. Lucan noticed the sweat on my hand and became confident again. An excellent suggestion. If Fenric reaches the combat minimum, I will restore his provisional badge. If he fails, he loses his scholarship and leaves the academy tonight. Amaya glared at him. He has already spent mana. Real mage cannot ask an enemy to wait for breakfast. Lucan had created terms that looked fair to witnesses and were designed to remove me. Garen wanted my seat. Lucan wanted Garen's father's money. 6 students were already running upstairs to spread the news. I checked the wall clock. The ranking trial begins in 50 minutes, I said. Academy rules require a public crystal to be prepared by a registrar. Lucan frowned. My core recovered 1 unit every 10 minutes. 50 minutes is acceptable, he said at last. It was exactly enough. By the time I returned to the arena, more than 300 students filled the seats again. News moved through the academy faster than fire and ate more attention. Someone had written 8-unit hero on the betting board. The odds against me were 12-1. Garen stood beside the target in his red coat. 30 silver says you fail, he announced. 30 silver could buy hot meals for a month. I had nothing to match it. Amaya placed a small leather purse on the table. I will cover his wager. The noise in the arena changed. A theory prodigy betting on a failed caster was more interesting than the failed caster himself. I looked at her. "You are certain?" "No," she said. "That is why it is called a wager." 3 bronze plates were placed behind one another. Each plate resisted 8 units of penetration. Garen's firebolt had broken the first 2 and marked the third. His official score remained 26 because raw force also counted. I stepped into the casting ring. Lucan raised his hand. "Begin." I cast the same weak spark. Laughter began as the blue light wobbled over my palm. The measuring pillar showed 8. Lucan smiled. I touched the active circle. The silver line on my finger burned. The circle folded into 3 straight sides. The spark narrowed into a blue needle and vanished with a sharp crack. The first plate gained a hole. The second plate gained a hole. The third plate gained a hole. The needle buried itself in the stone wall behind them. For 2 full breaths, 300 students made no sound. Then the measuring pillar rang 3 times and announced at least 24 units of confirmed penetration. The arena exploded. Students stood on benches. The registrar ran to the plates and pushed a rod through all 3 holes. Names shifted across the ranking crystal. Mine reappeared at 412th place. Lucan stared at the triangular burn on the first plate. Illegal focus tool. Two registrars checked my sleeves, boots, belt, and empty pockets. They found 1 copper coin and enough chalk dust to make me look like a badly cleaned wall. Amaya lifted the slate she had brought from the archive. His circle changed after activation. I recorded the residual angles. The words spread through the seats. Changed after activation. Impossible. Changed after activation. Garen's face turned red. 30 silver no longer looked like his greatest problem. If my result stood, he had publicly mocked a new type of magic and lost. He snatched the wager purse from the table. "A trick does not make him a combat mage. Worker Zinsene Carvergard a la Kurger Krindo and Wetchestery Kono Raiden Astiba Onedated Kingston and Tislade, Podetta Unshri Invocario Redinze Ricarias, O Crus Lorn Chid a Koof, Year E Boulders a square but Jir Trio all floor. Its power was 26. It flew straight at my chest while every registrar and student watched. I had 5 mana left. Changing its circle into another shape would cost too much. Rotating an existing triangle required 4. Garen's firebolt used a triangular acceleration head inside a circular shell. I stepped toward it. That frightened the crowd more than the attack. My finger touched the outer edge for less than a heartbeat. The skin split with heat. I turned the inner triangle downward. The bolt obeyed its own geometry. It struck the floor in front of Garen and burst under his boots. He jumped with both legs at once. His expensive red coat remained perfect. His boots did not. The soles caught fire, and he ran in a circle while 2 assistants chased him with a water bucket. The third assistant threw the entire bucket and missed Garen, but hit Lucan. 300 students saw everything. The laughter was louder than it had been for my spark. The registrar seized Garen's combat badge for an illegal attack. His ranking fell from 43rd to 103rd pending review. The wager purse was taken from his hand and placed in mine. Lucan stood soaked beside the crystal, while the chief registrar read the result aloud. My provisional combat status was restored. I also received 5 silver for passing a witnessed retest. My public result had moved from 8 units of useless force to at least 24 units of penetration. I had earned 35 silver. I had gone from unranked to 412th. All of it had happened before dinner. My right index finger had also blistered from touching Garen's fire. Power had a price. Mine smelled like cooked skin. Amaya took me to a narrow kitchen behind the theory hall. She spread cold cream over the burn and wrapped it with clean linen. Then she heated beef broth in a black pot. It contained soft potatoes, sweet carrots, onion, and strips of meat that broke apart under the spoon. She cut a round loaf of dark bread, toasted both sides over the stove, and covered one piece with butter and honey. I had not realized how hungry this body was until the steam reached me. "Slowly," she warned. I ate the first bowl too quickly. She pushed the second bowl toward me. "You were calm when Garen attacked. I knew the cost. 4 mana and 1 burned finger, 35 silver, and his dignity. It was a profitable exchange." Amaya laughed so suddenly that she almost dropped her spoon. After dinner, she returned with an academy map. She wanted to compare the triangular residue from my spell with old architectural symbols. The map showed the main tower, 4 study halls, 2 dormitories, the arena, and the unfinished foundation of a new residence. I touched the ink without thinking. The silver mark on my finger became cold. The system recognized connected magical lines beneath the buildings. It traced them through my mind. The main tower formed the upper point. The halls formed 4 more. Roads and underground mana pipes completed the sides. The academy was not a collection of buildings. It was an unfinished 5-pointed summoning star, 800 meters wide. Only 1 line was missing. The new dormitory would complete it in 6 days. Amaya saw my expression. "What did you find?" Before I could answer, new ink appeared by itself on the guest list printed at the bottom of the plan. The opening ceremony had 1 honorary guest, Valor, the god who had been expelled from the world 300 years ago. The next morning, a spiral in my breakfast porridge made the same bubble burst 3 times. Amaya dropped her spoon when the hot oat cream jumped from the bowl on the first burst, the second burst, and the third. I wiped a white spot from my sleeve. "Useful," I said. "You attacked yourself with breakfast." Every experiment needs a target. The night had given us no sleep. We had copied the academy plan twice, but the name Valor vanished from both copies before sunrise. Only a faint star-shaped stain remained on the original page. Amaya had spent the last hour studying the way my spoon moved through the porridge. A circle returned to its beginning. A spiral also returned, but on a new layer. She believed magic might read each layer as another command. I had tested the idea with a warming rune beneath my bowl. The rune normally cost 1 unit of mana and released 1 pulse of heat. Changing its circle into a spiral with 2 extra turns cost 2 additional units. The bowl had heated 3 times, 1 cast, 3 effects, 3 mana. The system confirmed the rule only after I proved it. A complete spiral repeated an effect once for every additional turn. Each turn cost 1 mana. Repeated power weakened by 2% each time, and a damaged line broke the entire sequence. That was not free strength, it was efficiency bought with precision. I had increased 1 unit of heat into nearly 3 without increasing my mana capacity. I had also covered my only clean shirt in porridge. Amaya handed me a cloth. "The academy laundry charges 2 copper. Then this experiment has already produced a financial loss." Someone hammered on the kitchen door. A registrar waited outside with 2 guards and a sheet bearing Lucan's seal. By sunrise, the examiner had transformed his public humiliation into an official charge against me. The notice accused me of using forbidden alteration magic, damaging academy property, provoking Garen, and deceiving a ranking crystal. My provisional badge had been suspended again. My scholarship payment, due that morning, had been frozen. Lucan had also requested that Amaya be punished for assisting me. That part made her expression colder than mine. "He filed the charge at midnight," the registrar said quietly. "The hearing starts in half an hour. He invited the whole practical division." Of course he had. Lucan had lost in front of 300 witnesses. He needed to win in front of at least 301. The main lecture court was full when we arrived. Students crowded the stairs and windows. A rumor sheet had already printed a drawing of Garen running in burning boots. The artist had given him 4 legs. It improved the sense of speed. Lucan sat behind a long oak bench in dry robes. Garen sat beside him with both feet wrapped in white bandages. His boots had been replaced. His dignity had not. 3 senior professors formed the review board. The woman in the center was Celan, head of spatial magic. She had silver hair, a plain black robe, and the patient face of someone who had watched many fools enter rooms before her. Lucan stood. "Fenric claims to possess a new combat method, yet no such class exists in the Royal Registry. I request a public class reading." A clear crystal was placed before me. I touched it. The crystal spoke loudly enough for the entire court. "Editor of magical forms, auxiliary class, lowest rank, recommended occupation, diagram correction, and clerical copying." The court erupted in laughter. Garen leaned back with satisfaction. Lucan waited until the noise faded. "A copyist," he said, "not a combat mage. Yesterday's result must have come from an illegal relic." The crystal's description did not mention active editing. The class looked worse than the gray theory badge Lucan had given me. Students in the upper rows began calling me Master Copyist. I touched the bandage on my finger. "The registry also calls a kitchen knife a cooking tool," I said. "That does not make standing on one a good idea." Some of the laughter changed direction. Lucan slapped the bench. "Then demonstrate your alleged skill under controlled conditions." He had already prepared the conditions. 6 brass launchers stood at one end of the court. Each would fire a force bolt rated at 15 units. I would stand at the other end and maintain 6 separate shields. A standard student shield consumed 6 mana and blocked 18 units. 6 shields required 36 mana. I had 12. Lucan knew it. Everyone with a measuring lens knew it. If you refuse, he said, the charge is accepted. Professor Celine examined the launchers. The test is excessive for a first-year student. He claims an impossible power, Lucan replied. An impossible claim deserves a difficult test. His motive was clean enough to show through his words. If I passed, the Academy would have to admit that he had discarded a valuable student. Donors disliked examiners who threw away valuable things. If I failed, he could call yesterday an accident and keep Garen's family happy. Amaya leaned close to me. A 6-turn spiral would cost 11 mana with the base shield. The 6th launcher is angled 2 degrees left, I whispered. She followed my eyes, and the power lines under the floor lead to a 7th switch beneath Lucan's desk. So the public test contained a private surprise. Can you make 7 shields? She asked. A base effect and 6 repetitions costs 12. It would empty my core completely. If one line broke, every later shield would fail. If I fainted before the final pulse, 15 units of force would hit my ribs. I looked at the packed court. Every seat was a witness. Every measuring lens was evidence. I accept, I said, on one condition. Lucan smiled. You are in no position to bargain. If I stop all 6 launchers, the Academy restores my scholarship, pays 30 gold for wrongful suspension, and opens my original examination record. If I fail, I leave without appeal. 30 gold caused a wave of whispers. It was more than Lucan earned in 3 months. It was also the amount reserved for proven examination misconduct. He glanced at the hidden 7th switch, then at my recorded 12 mana. Celine made both of us press a thumb to the agreement crystal. The terms shone above the court in large letters until every witness had read them. The floor around me contained a prepared shield circle. I knelt and placed my right hand on its edge. 6 mana entered the defensive rune. A pale round barrier rose in front of me. Lucan laughed. 1 shield. I dragged the active line inward. The circle curled around itself. 1 turn became 2, then 3. My finger moved slowly. A difference smaller than a grain of sand would cause the lines to touch and collapse. 4 turns. 5, 6. 7 layers of light rested around the same center. My remaining 6 mana vanished. Pain ran from my hand to my shoulder. The first pale barrier stood alone, as ordinary as any beginner spell. Lucan lowered his hand. The first launcher fired. 15 units struck the shield. Light shattered across the court. Before the fragments touched the floor, the spiral's second turn ignited. A new shield appeared. The students stopped laughing. The second bolt hit. The second shield broke. A third rose from the same cast. The measuring lenses rang. The 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th launchers fired. Each impact destroyed 1 barrier, and the spiral restored it with 2% less strength. Even the 7th barrier retained more than 15 units and stood waiting after the 6th bolt. The court remained silent for 1 heartbeat. Then 200 students rose at once. They had counted every shield aloud. When the final barrier remained standing, the count became a roar that shook the windows. The measuring pillar announced that 1 12-unit cast had resisted 90 units of total force. My knees hit the floor. I had no mana left, but I was still awake. Lucan's face looked like a locked cabinet. The sequence is complete, Celine said. Fenric passes. Lucan pressed the switch beneath his desk. The 7th launcher opened from behind a curtain. Amaya shouted. Guards turned too late. A final force bolt crossed the court toward my unprotected chest. The last turn of my spiral ignited. Lucan had counted 6 launchers. I had counted a base shield and 6 repetitions. The 7th barrier appeared half a breath before the bolt. It caught the force and bent it upward. The bolt hit the large ranking bell above Lucan's bench. The bell fell. Lucan jumped away. The heavy bronze dome landed over him with a crash, trapping him from the waist up. His legs remained visible beneath it. For several seconds, they moved with great authority in no useful direction. The entire court saw him. The laughter shook dust from the ceiling. Celine did not laugh. She walked to the hidden launcher, opened its control plate, and there removed Lucan's signed activation key. Attempted assault after a completed examination, she said. Falsification of test conditions, concealment of damaged equipment. 2 guards lifted the bell. Lucan emerged red-faced and covered in bronze dust. Then the original examination record opened on the wall crystal. It showed that the focusing station used for my first spark had lost 60% of its output before my attempt. Lucan had received the fault warning. He had cleared it without replacing the crystal. My original spell had not truly produced 8 units. It had produced 20. With a triangular edit, its effective penetration would be 60. The court became louder than the arena had been. Students who had called me master copyist began repeating the title with a different tone. The public ranking crystal moved my name from 412th to 220th. A bronze mark appeared beside it, recognizing a combined combat and theory certification. Garen tried to leave through a side door. The same registrar who had chased his burning boots blocked the way and handed him a summons for the donor seat investigation. Lucan was removed as chief examiner before noon. He had wanted to erase one weak scholarship student. Instead, he had displayed his own fraud to 200 witnesses and 3 recording crystals. The Academy restored my scholarship at 20 gold per month. The treasurer counted 30 additional gold into a leather bag as compensation. I had never held so much money. The bag was disappointingly small. Riches, like poison, apparently worked in concentrated amounts. Celine met me outside the court. "Your spiral did not create mana," she said. "It reused the instruction. And an active instruction is supposed to be immutable. That rule seems less healthy every time someone says it." She looked at my burned finger, then at Amaya's notebook. "Do not demonstrate another shape without supervision. If the Circle Council learns what you can do, Lucan will become the smallest of your problems." She walked away before I could ask why. Amaya and I spent the afternoon in the market. I paid 24 gold for a lesser core crystal from a licensed shop. It tasted like cold metal when dissolved under my tongue. For 10 painful minutes, my heartbeat felt too large for my chest. My mana capacity rose from 12 to 18. I spent 3 more gold on mana conductive chalk, a leather finger guard, and a used measuring lens. I kept 3 gold and 35 silver. For the first time, I owned enough money to refuse a bad bargain. Amaya insisted that financial wisdom should begin with food. We bought a roast chicken with crisp brown skin and pepper under the wings. The seller wrapped warm garlic bread in paper and added pickled cucumbers that snapped between my teeth. Amaya chose 2 small apple cakes. Their crust broke into buttery flakes, and the filling was hot enough to burn my tongue. "You can redirect fire spells," she reminded me. "Not apples." We ate on the steps behind the old library while afternoon sunlight warmed the stone. Students passing below pointed at me. Some whispered about the 7 shields. 2 younger theory students asked me to sign their chalk boxes. Yesterday, the Academy had applauded when I lost my badge. Today, a rumor sheet called me the spiral copyist and estimated my new technique at 500 gold. The estimate was wrong, but I liked its direction. When the market closed, Amaya and I returned to the archive. The official Academy plan still showed the giant star when viewed through my system sense, but the visible ink looked harmless. We searched older boxes until my hands turned gray with dust. At midnight, Amaya found a roll sealed by the Academy's first architect. The original plan did not contain a 5th dormitory. Someone had added it 40 years later. The new lines were signed by a member of the Circle Council. The signature had been scratched away, but a small seal remained beneath the wax. It showed a perfect circle surrounding a 5-pointed star. Celine entered through a door that had not existed a second earlier. Space folded behind her like a closing page. "Stop touching that plan," she said. The underground mana pipes pulsed beneath our feet. For one instant, every circle drawn on every page in the archive glowed red. The unfinished star had absorbed the energy from the day's public trial. A thin line of light advanced from the arena toward the new dormitory. The system measured the charge at 12%. 5 days remained until completion. Outside, iron wheels crossed the Academy gate. A black carriage stopped under the library window, surrounded by royal guards. A tall man stepped down. He wore the white coat of the Circle Council and a ring bearing the same star we had found under the wax. Celine looked through the glass and said his name once. Peros. The capital inspector had arrived 4 days early. On the 3rd morning, a door opened in empty air and dropped a tournament invitation into my tea. The paper carried Firos's seal and named me as the challenger to a fire mage whose last recorded attack could melt a city gate. Celine closed the small spatial door with 2 fingers. "He is waiting in the council chamber," she sequats. "When T and Dredrick went," she said. Amaya rescued the invitation from my cup. Brown liquid ran down the gold letters. "The Founders Tournament began yesterday," she said. "Registration closed last week." Then Firos writes quickly. He also changed the final match. The original finalist had withdrawn after receiving a large council payment. I finished my tea before entering the chamber overlooking the unfinished dormitory, which my class sense showed as the missing point of a blade. Firos waited in a spotless white coat. Garen stood beside him, with a red crystal fixed to his chest harness. "Fenric," Firos said, "your name has reached the capital faster than the official report. Bad news also travels quickly. I do not consider you bad news. I consider you unregistered property." Amaya stiffened. Celine's spatial rings lit under her sleeves. Firos turned and smiled politely. "Every magical technique affecting active arrays falls under council review. I can protect Fenric from accusations of heresy. In return, the council will own his class research and license its use." He placed a contract on the table. "It offered me 10 gold a month. Yesterday, a public tribunal had paid me 3 times that amount for being mistreated by one examiner." "No, Yats, siege recherche Varbakis and Erds," Garen laughed. "You should read it first." "Did reading your fire spell stop it from burning your boots?" His face tightened. Firos remained calm. "The tournament provides a second option. Defeat the Academy's chosen fire champion before 4,000 witnesses. You will receive 100 gold, the champion's access crest, and legal recognition of your method until formal council review. If you lose, your research enters my custody. The Academy suspends you for using unlicensed combat magic." It was a better trap than Lucan's. Firos did not need to falsify anything. The Circle Council had written the law, owned the licenses, and appointed the inspectors. He could smile because the walls already belonged to him. The champion's access crest could open the sealed construction archive under the new dormitory. We needed that archive. I picked up the wet invitation. I accept the match. The prize and legal protection will be recorded before the crowd. Firos's gaze shifted towards Amaya. He had expected negotiation. He had not expected a condition. "Agreed." Garen stepped closer. The red crystal in his harness pulsed. "You think yesterday made you strong. This ember core stores 120 units. It cost my father 80 gold. Then try not to lose it with your next pair of boots." His heat cracked the varnish on the table. Firos raised one finger and Garen stopped. That told me who had chosen the new finalist. The match began at sunset. I had less than 10 hours to learn how to survive 120 units of fire. A triangle would strengthen the fireball, a spiral would repeat it, and a square would anchor me beside a small sun. Celine took us to a practice room and opened 4 doors onto 4 walls. "A line does not have to lie flat," she said. "Spatial mages fold circles through several planes. We never alter them after activation. We build the folds first." Celine cast a sphere of white light. Amaya drew 4 joined triangles around it. "A closed polyhedron can contain pressure," she said. My power edited one line, while her shape required several planes. Celine opened 4 spatial doors around the light sphere. Through them, the same circular line appeared from 4 directions. "It is one line," she said. "Space merely shows it in several places." My class cared about continuity, not physical location. I touched the nearest edge of Celine's light spell. The silver mark on my finger brightened. I pulled the circle through the first spatial fold. One curved section became a straight edge. I repeated the motion through the other doors without releasing the line. 3 units of mana left me, then 5. At 8 units, 4 triangular faces locked together. The white light stopped spreading. It remained inside a transparent tetrahedron, no larger than my head. Celine cut the power feeding her spell. The light stayed trapped for 10 seconds. Amaya counted each one aloud. When the 10th ended, the tetrahedron opened along its edges and the light vanished. The system confirmed a new geometric effect. A closed polyhedron converted outward release into containment. 4 faces cost 8 mana, 6 faces cost 10. The prison lasted 1 second for every unit of edit mana. Pressure above the strength of the edges would break it early. Garen's fireball carried 120 units. A 4-faced prison would last less than a breath. A 6-faced form distributed pressure better, but 10 seconds would still not decide a duel. "Can you make the inside larger?" Amaya asked. Celine folded one door inside another. "With a spatial anchor." Celine fixed the prism from my measuring lens into my finger guard. It could hold one spatial fold for 12 seconds. With it, I could make the inside of a six-faced prism 3 times larger than its outer size. The spell would expand into empty folded space instead of breaking the faces immediately. The edit would cost 10 mana. Holding the prism would cost 2 more. I would have 6 mana left. A triangular spark required 7. I needed either more mana or a cheaper final attack. Amaya erased one line from her notes. Your spark costs 4 because the standard circle stabilizes it for 5 seconds. You fire it immediately. Reduce the circle. We reduced the spark circle by 1/4. It held for 2 seconds, and its cost fell from 4 mana to 3. The triangle edit still cost 3. I could now cast a 20-unit spark with 60 units of penetration for 6 mana. My total plan cost exactly 18. 1 polyhedral prison, 1 triangular spark. Nothing left for mistakes. At midday, I trapped a 30-unit practice flame inside 6 transparent faces. It struck the folded walls for 10 seconds and emerged with only 5 units remaining. The contained spell had burned most of its own fuel. That will work once, Celine said. After Firos sees it, the council will design a counter. Once is enough for today's prize. Firos does not care about the prize. Neither did I. I cared about the crest and the archive. The gold would keep me alive long enough to use them. The arena gates opened at sunset. 4,000 people filled the stands, while projection crystals enlarged every movement. My ranking appeared at 220th. Garen's appeared at 103rd because of his suspension. Beneath it, the Ember Corps added a temporary combat estimate of 17th. Bookmakers offered 9-1 against me. A rumor artist sold Garen pictures wearing metal boots with small fire extinguishers. Firos watched from the royal gallery, with the dismissed Lucan behind him. Before the match, Firos stood and read the agreement aloud. If I won, my technique received provisional legal recognition. I would receive 100 gold and the champion's crest. 4 recording crystals sealed his words. He could still destroy me later, for tonight he had locked himself inside a public promise. Garen entered the ring in a new red coat. Is the Bekor he's a fascist. Yesterday, you redirected a beginner bolt, he called. Today, I will show everyone the difference between clever hands and real power. The crowd cheered. He had a clear motive. If he won, his suspension vanished. His family kept its place beside the council, and yesterday became a funny accident. He was fighting for more than pride. So was I. The judge lowered a white flag. Garen released 40 units in his first attack. 3 fire spears crossed the ring. I ran between them. One passed close enough to burn the hair above my ear. I did not spend mana. My plan required all 18. He fired 6 smaller bolts. They struck the sand behind me and built a wall of flame. Heat closed around the ring. The crowd became a single roaring shape. Garen wanted me near the center. His Ember Core needed 3 seconds to release its full charge. I let him have the position. The red crystal opened. Fire poured around his arms and formed a sphere taller than I was. The measuring pillars climbed through 60, 80, 100, and finally 120 units. 4,000 voices fell silent. Even Garen looked afraid of what he held. Firos leaned forward in the royal gallery. "End it," Garen shouted. He pushed the fireball toward me. It moved slowly for the first pace. Mritso Betanagashwet Foster first pace. Then the acceleration triangle inside its shell ignited. The sphere became a red wall. I ran toward it. The audience screamed. My leather guard touched the outer circle. Heat passed through the prism and burned my palm. I caught one point of the active line and pulled it sideways through the stored spatial fold. The circle resisted. Garen's mana tried to preserve its original form. 10 units left my core in a single, painful wave. One face appeared, then a second. 4 edges locked around the fire. The sphere struck the folded interior. Before I completed the 5th face, my vision turned white. The prism cracked. I closed the 6th face. The fireball vanished. A transparent polyhedron the size of an apple floated above my hand. Inside it, a red storm raged through a space 3 times larger than the arena. Flame struck one clear wall, crossed the spatial fold, and emerged against another. The prism flashed orange, yellow, then white. Garen stared at his ultimate attack trapped inside something small enough to fit in a soup bowl. The arena remained silent until the first measuring crystal screamed. Then every spectator stood. People pointed at the projection above the ring. The enlarged image showed 120 units of fire turning in circles inside 6 transparent faces. The crowd's shock hit harder than the heat. Garen tried to call the spell back. The polyhedron recognized no outside direction. Every path led inward. 10 seconds passed. The prison opened. 5 units of tired flame fell into the sand and went out. Garen looked at Firos. Firos did not move. I had 6 mana left. I cast the reduced spark. Its small circle trembled over my injured hand. Garen raised both arms, expecting another weak blue light. I changed the circle into a triangle. The needle crossed the ring with 60 units of penetration. It did not touch his body. It cut the gold buckle holding his ember harness. The heavy crystal dropped into the sand. Without its support, Garen's oversized red coat opened, twisted around his elbows, and trapped both arms behind him. He tried to step backward, placed one foot on the rolling core, and to scare the is by the boundary line. The judge raised the white flag. Fenric wins. 4,000 witnesses saw Garen defeated by his own coat after his most expensive spell had been stored like a candle in a glass box. The sound from the stands rolled across the city. My ranking rose from 220th to 19th. The champion's crest appeared beside my name. Students who had laughed at my 8-unit spark now shouted Master Editor until the words lost shape. Garen remained in the sand. He was not laughing. For the first time, he looked less arrogant than tired. My father will abandon me, he said quietly as attendants approached. Then learn something he cannot buy, I replied. I did not offer friendship. He had tried to burn me twice, but I left him the Ember Core. Public defeat was enough. Taking the last thing his family had purchased for him would have turned a beaten rival into a desperate enemy. Firos descended into the ring carrying the prize chest. He presented 100 gold before the recording crystals. Then, he fastened the champion's silver crest to my gray theory badge. His fingers paused against the cloth. A remarkable shape, he said. The council will value it. Then the council can pay market price. Laughter came from the front rows. Firos' smile remained, but the skin around it stopped helping. He had arranged the match to seize my research. Instead, he had funded me, raised my public rank to 19th, and given me the key to his sealed archive. 4,000 witnesses watched him do it. Money, strength, and status all felt lighter than the burned hand Amaya took as soon as I left the ring. She led me to a quiet roof above the dining hall. Celine brought a basin of cold water through a small portal. Amaya removed the cracked prism and cleaned the red line across my palm. Dinner arrived in paper boxes. The river fish had been fried whole until its skin was crisp and salty. Soft white meat came away from the bones under my fork. We had rice cooked with butter, green beans with garlic, lemon slices, and small cakes filled with warm plum jam. Amaya broke one cake in half and gave me the larger piece. You ran toward a fireball worth 120 units, she said. It contained 100 gold and an archive key. That does not improve the explanation. It improves the accounting. She tied the final bandage more tightly than necessary. Below us, students continued celebrating. My name shone at 19th place on the tower ranking crystal. Yesterday, I had owned 1 copper coin. Now the prize chest beside me held 100 gold, and the champion's crest opened every public room in the academy. For 10 quiet minutes, the star beneath the buildings almost felt distant. Then a servant from the royal gallery climbed onto the roof. He carried a second envelope from Firos. This invitation was made of black paper. Gold lines formed the complete summoning star. The opening of the new dormitory had been moved to the end of the week, and the honored guest was listed again. When I touched the paper, my class sense revealed a second line hidden beneath the gold ink. The honored guest required a living vessel. The vessel chosen by the ceremony was the champion of the Founders Tournament. The black paper tightened around my bandaged hand like a closing fist. On the 4th morning, every door in the academy opened into the unfinished dormitory for 1 second. 4,000 students saw a black foundation descending into darkness, and then the doors returned to their proper rooms. Panic reached the corridors before the doors had finished closing. Students ran outside in night clothes. Professors tested the seals. The academy called it harmless. No one believed them. Harmless things rarely showed people an endless hole before breakfast. Celine found us beside the west stairwell. She had closed 37 accidental doors in 10 minutes. Even her calm face looked tired. The star used my portal network, she said. Every doorway became part of one connected line. The tournament had raised the underground charge from 12% to 34%. 4,000 spectators, hundreds of active recording crystals, and Garen's 120 units had all fed the array beneath the arena. Feroz had not merely tried to defeat me. He had used our match as fuel. My champion's crest opened the sealed archive under the construction site. Feroz knew that. He had probably filled it with guards before sunrise. Amaya held up the black invitation. If Fenric is the vessel, we need to learn how the star transfers Vylor into him. Near the Vribastor Thesperbalash. Hadakarda one irestadiester erende does nature essential. At Siranza Ari Bestesti asked. Does they? Then we edit the transfer. They both looked at me. I like plans with fewer gods inside me, I said. We crossed the academy while the staff restored order. My new ranking at 19th place glowed above the main tower. Students moved aside when I passed. Some raised their chalk boxes. Others touched protective charms. One day earlier, they had called my class clerical garbage. Now half the school wanted my signature and the other half feared I could turn their bedrooms into triangles. My power did not work on ordinary rooms. I did not correct the rumor. The unfinished dormitory stood behind a fence guarded by 20 royal soldiers. Its outer walls were complete, but the main doors had not been hung. White stone covered 4 floors. The 5th floor remained open to the sky. Feroz waited at the gate. Construction areas are closed, he said. I showed the champion's crest. The tournament charter grants the winner access to all academy facilities. This is not yet an academy facility. The council transferred it to the academy 3 months ago. Feroz looked at Selene. You are teaching students to challenge legal definitions? Amaya does not require lessons in that subject. More students gathered behind us. They had followed from the main yard. Within a minute, there were 50 witnesses. Within 2, there were 200. Public attention had become my most reliable armor. Feroz could ignore 3 students. He could not openly ignore a charter he had honored before 4,000 people. He ordered the soldiers to let us pass. You have 1 hour, he said. Then you will attend my demonstration in the city square. The public deserves proof that your method is safe. Does the council often test safety after selecting someone as a divine vessel? The students behind us went silent. Feroz's gaze touched the black invitation in Amaya's hand. A ceremonial metaphor, he said. Do not spread childish interpretations. He had answered too quickly. The sealed archive lay beneath the central stair. My crest opened the first silver lock. Selene opened a spatial seal hidden behind it. Amaya solved a sequence of geometric questions carved into the 3rd door. The final lock required a drop of blood from the first architect's family. We did not have it. Move away from the door, a woman said behind us. She wore a brown work coat and carried a mason's hammer. A silver wedding band hung from a chain around her neck to keep it away from stone dust. Her face resembled the portrait of the Academy's first architect on the archive's seal. Odell, Selene said, I thought the council barred you from the grounds. It did. Then every door in my house opened into this place, including the oven. My husband lost a loaf of bread, I came to complain. Odell pressed her thumb to a small blade. 1 drop of blood touched the lock. The archive opened. Feroz had not filled it with guards. He had emptied it. Shelves stood bare. Cabinets had been broken. The room smelled of burned paper. Odell walked to a patch of ash and knelt. My father stored the original foundation plans here. He died refusing to approve the 5th dormitory. The council called it an accident. Her voice remained steady, but the hammer in her hand did not. Amaya examined the floor. They removed the papers this morning. I looked at the archive itself. Shelves, cabinets, and documents were gone, but the room had been designed around them. Small grooves in the stone marked where rolled plans had rested. The first architect had built his records into the geometry of the chamber. My class sense followed those grooves. 4 long cabinets had formed parallel lines. A curved reading table had completed a spiral. The archive was a memory array. Removing the furniture had broken its visible shape, but the active mana beneath the floor still remembered the path. I could not restore the missing objects. I could edit the line that connected their empty positions. Selene, can you place doors where the cabinets stood? She opened 4 narrow portals, each no wider than my hand. Their edges connected the grooves across the empty room. The scattered marks became one continuous shape again. The system recognized an active spiral with missing physical sections bridged through folded space. Geometry depended on connection, not distance. I touched the first groove and corrected the spiral's final turn. 5 mana left me. Blue light ran through the empty shelves. Images rose above the floor. Transparent plans unrolled in the air, preserved by the room itself. Odell covered her mouth. Her father appeared as a pale memory beside the main plan. He was older than the portrait and leaned on the same mason's hammer she carried. If this record has opened, the memory said, the Circle Council has completed enough of the summoning design to threaten the Academy. The 5th dormitory is not a residence. It is an arrival chamber. The image pointed to the star beneath the buildings. Its 5 outer points gathered mana. The inner pentagon compressed space. The arena supplied conflict. The main towers supplied thought. The dormitories supplied sleeping minds. The champion's ceremony supplied a body strong enough to survive entry. My body. The name of the exile is Valor. He cannot cross a closed boundary from outside. The council intends to define the academy itself as the inside of his prison. When the final line closes, our world will become the outside. Amaya understood first. They are not opening his prison. They are turning the prison inside out. The memory showed a clockwise circle around the star, then reversed its direction. Inside and outside exchanged places. That was another geometric property. A closed magical line had orientation. Clockwise arrays contained what stood inside. Counterclockwise arrays rejected it. Reverse the direction, and protection became expulsion. A prison became a gate. The room shook. Firos's voice came through a speaking crystal above the door. Our hour had ended after 12 minutes. The city demonstration begins now, he said. If Fenric refuses, the council will announce that he cannot control his illegal class. Odell copied the memory record into her measuring plate. The plate showed the architect, the star, and Valor's name. It was evidence, but Firos controlled the capital courts. We needed the city to see it before he seized it. Attend the demonstration, Odell said. My father believed buildings should protect the people who could see them. Let the people see. The city square held more than 2,000 spectators. Firos had worked quickly. Council banners hung from every roof. Merchants sold small transparent cubes based on my tournament spell. One vendor had put a red candy flame inside each one. A raised platform occupied the center. On it stood a perfect golden barrier 10 paces wide. The measuring pillars rated it at 200 units. Firos waited inside with 6 council witnesses. Representatives of the City Research Guild sat near the platform. Their speaker announced an offer of 300 gold for independent publication of my geometric method. Pharos had invited them because he expected me to fail and wanted their public rejection. He raised both hands as I entered the square. Yesterday, Fenric altered a moving fire spell under tournament conditions. Today, we will learn whether his technique is reliable or merely a dangerous accident. The crowd murmured. Projection crystals displayed my bandaged palm and 19th place ranking. Pharos touched the golden barrier. This circle is the foundation of modern magic. Stable, complete, immutable. Fenric may use any method he demonstrated in the tournament. If he changes this barrier without breaking it, the council will recognize his research as independent, and the guild will pay its promised advance. The terms appeared above the square. Pharos had chosen a shape with no attack to redirect and too much power to contain. My 18 mana could not break 200 units. He had also placed the casting line inside the barrier. I could not touch it from outside. The audience knew my contact limit. Pharos had announced it before the match. If you fail, he continued, your champion's legal protection ends. Your research and all related records enter council custody. He smiled from behind the gold wall. Lucan had hidden a 7th launcher. Pharos had simply built the rules around my known reach. I looked at Celine. She opened a portal beside my hand. Pharos shook his head. No outside assistance. The charter allows standard focus tools, I said. A licensed spatial door is a standard focus tool. You use 3 to bring the platform here. The Research Guild checked the terms. Their speaker agreed. The crowd cheered. Pharos had written a broad rule because he expected my own tools to be useless. Now the wording belonged to both of us. Celine could not cast the edit. She could only place 4 tiny doors. One opened beside my right hand. The other 3 appeared inside the barrier at equal points along the golden circle. Through folded space, the active line passed beneath my fingers. Pharos's expression changed for the first time. I did not try to break the circle. I pulled its orientation backward. Clockwise light slowed. 200 units of defensive power resisted my hand. The bandage smoked. The reservoir bracelet I had bought on our way to the square released 12 stored mana into my core. It had cost 80 gold and could recharge only once per day. My available power rose from 18 to 30. 10 units vanished, then 15. At 20 units, the golden line stopped. The entire square fell silent. I moved my finger the other way. The circle began turning counterclockwise. The barrier did not shatter. It remained a perfect, stable, unbroken circle, exactly as Pharos had demanded. Its definition of inside changed. The spell rejected everything it had been protecting. 6 council witnesses flew out in 6 directions. 1 landed in a flower cart. 2 fell into a stack of empty boxes. Pharos rose straight upward, crossed the top of the barrier, and dropped into the public fountain behind the platform. The golden circle settled around the empty air. For one quiet second, 2,000 people watched the Capitol Inspector stand waist-deep in water with a lily on his shoulder. Then the square erupted. The measuring pillars confirmed that the 200-unit barrier remained active and undamaged. The Research Guild speaker read the result 3 times. Recording crystals showed the reversed flow in close detail. Pharos climbed from the fountain. His white coat now carried green leaves and one small fish in a pocket. He removed the fish with great dignity. That made the laughter worse. He had planned to confiscate my work publicly. Instead, he had proven my claim, supplied the strongest test yet, and demonstrated the result with his own body. The City Guild transferred 300 gold to my Academy account. My ranking rose from 19th to 7th. A silver crown appeared beside my name, marking me as an independent magical innovator under city law. Strength, money, and status moved together again. Pharos could not erase any of it without erasing 2,000 witnesses. He stepped onto the platform, water running from his sleeves. "A clever success," he said. "The council recognizes the result." His voice remained calm. That was more threatening than Garen's shouting. For public safety, tomorrow's dormitory opening will proceed at dawn under emergency supervision. The academy will be sealed until the ceremony ends. Amaya went still beside me. The opening had been 3 days away. Pharos had just moved it to tomorrow. Royal guards closed the roads before sunset. Odell took us to her home beyond the old mason's yard because it contained a forgotten service tunnel into the academy. Her husband greeted us with flour on both hands and no surprise at the spatial professor in his kitchen. He had recovered the loaf lost through the morning's doorway. It was slightly burned on one side, but he sliced it thickly and rubbed the crust with tomato and salt. Dinner was lamb-baked until it separated from the bone. Potatoes crisp with rosemary, soft onions cooked in the meat juices, and a bowl of cool cream with cucumber. A small custard pie waited near the window. For half an hour, no one mentioned gods, vessels, or council law. Odell's young son asked whether I could turn his vegetables into cake by changing their shape. "No," I said. "Then your magic needs work." I could not argue with that level of theory. Amaya sat beside me at the long table. Our shoulders touched whenever she reached for bread. She did not move her chair away. After dinner, we spread the copied plans across the kitchen floor. Odell marked 5 architectural anchors around the campus. Celine calculated portal routes between them. Amaya measured the stars' angles. I counted costs. Editing an 800-meter array would require at least 100 mana. My core held 18. The reservoir bracelet added 12. Even if I emptied both, I had less than 1/3 of what we needed. The academy maintained emergency batteries under each anchor. Together, they stored 600 units. Pharos controlled the keys. Odell held up her father's mason hammer. "He built the locks. My blood can open them." We had access to power. We still needed to reach 5 anchors while the entire academy was sealed. Celine placed one finger on the portal map. "I can connect 4. The 5th point lies inside the new dormitory. Its space is already folding away from our world. Amaya drew a line from the 5th point to the champion's mark on the invitation. Fenric will be taken there as the vessel. The plan required me to let Pharos begin the ceremony. Outside, the academy's opening bell rang by itself. It was still midnight. Every plate on Odell's table slid into the shape of a star. The custard pie split into 5 perfect points. Red light rose beyond the window as the main tower, arena, halls, and dormitories connected. The system measured the charge at 51%. Above the unfinished 5th point, the night sky bent inward. A hand larger than the dormitory pressed against the other side. One black finger pushed through. At dawn, the black finger tapped the sky, and every circle in the academy became an eye. Thousands of glowing eyes turned toward me at the same moment. They shone in doors, lamps, shields, and plates. Vailor had not entered the world, but he could already look through its circles. The eyes closed after 3 seconds. Pharos' soldiers reached Odell's street a minute later. We escaped through the service tunnel beneath her workshop. Odell carried her father's hammer. Celine maintained 4 coin-sized portals. Amaya carried the memory plate. I carried 30 mana, 1 damaged hand, and an invitation that wanted to deliver my body to a god. The tunnel ended beneath the Academy Bakery. Above us, bells called 4,000 students into the sealed central yard. Their frightened spells fed the star, raising its charge to 63%. Our plan needed 5 emergency batteries. Odell would open 4 through maintenance shafts. Celine would connect them with portals. Amaya would calculate the angles from the tower. Pharos would take me to the 5th point inside the arrival chamber. If Amaya missed by 1 degree, the 800-meter array could collapse on everyone. Comforting, I said. I can give you a less accurate number, she replied. We separated beneath the bakery, and I entered the central yard alone. Students stood beneath a red sky, surrounded by royal guards. 6 projection crystals carried the ceremony to the city. Red magic had completed the dormitory's missing roof, and Valor's black finger rested above it. Pharos stood on the stage in a new white coat. His old one was probably still drying. Our champion has arrived, he announced. 4,000 faces turned toward me. Garen stood beside the stage with his ember harness. Lucan waited near the control pillar, still desperate to stand beside power. Pharos gestured to the dormitory. Fenric's unique class will stabilize the final line. Afterward, the spatial disturbance will end, and the Circle Council will compensate every student with 10 gold. Uzi to 10 gold, bought trust from people who had never held 10 gold. Murmurs moved through the rows. I stepped onto the stage. Tell them the honored guest's name. Pharos' smile remained still. This is not the time for another performance. There are 6 recording crystals. It seems exactly like the time. Students began repeating the question. What guest? What name? The sound grew. Pharos lifted one hand. A binding circle appeared under my feet with 60 units of force. Golden bands closed around my arms and chest. The crowd recoiled. The champion is exhausted from recent events, Pharos said. We will assist him. I touched the active circle with the toe of my boot. My silver mark ran down through the leather. 4 mana changed the circle into a square. A square anchored an effect to a fixed place. The golden bands stopped following my body. I took 1 step forward and walked out of them. The empty restraints remained, standing over the square, like a cage that had forgotten its prisoner. 4,000 students saw it. The projection crystals enlarged Pharos' face as he realized his arrest spell was guarding empty air. Laughter began near the theory students and rolled outward. Even with a god pressing through the sky, the Academy remembered Lucan's bell and Garen's boots. Pharos lowered his voice. You are risking every life here! Then explain why their dormitories form a summoning star. Because the world's mana wells lose 1% of their strength each year, he said. In 40 years, cities will freeze. Healing halls will fail. Crops protected by weather arrays will die. Valor created the first circles. He can restore what is fading. That was his motive. Not simple greed, not madness. Pharos believed 1 sacrifice student and 1 controlled academy could save millions. He also believed no one else deserved to choose. Valor was exiled for turning living cities into mana wells, for his chanter said. History was written by those who feared him. Amaya's voice entered every speaking crystal. Then, let the man who designed this academy speak. The projection above the stage changed. Odell's father's memory appeared over the yard. Before the academy and city, he showed the star, the arrival chamber, and the champion selected as a vessel. The crowd stopped laughing. Pharos ordered Lucan to cut the relay. Nothing happened. Amaya had copied the memory into all 6 crystals, turning each into an independent witness. Lucan's failed command appeared above his head in red, while students shouted and city bells rang. Pharos had lost silence, but he still had the star. Begin the ceremony, he ordered. Lucan drove both hands into the control pillar. Mana surged beneath the yard. The charge climbed from 63% to 80%. Royal barriers forced frightened magic inward, while fire ran along the 5 roads of the star. Students tried to flee, but the boundary pushed them back. Firos pointed at me, and the black invitation wrapped around my wrist. Space folded, the central yard vanished. I landed inside the 5th dormitory. The building contained no rooms, only one hollow chamber with 5 leaning walls. A black circle covered the floor around an empty 5th battery. Firos had already drained it. The invitation pulled me toward the middle. I drove my leather guard against the floor and slowed it, but the black paper tightened until blood ran beneath the bandage. Celine's 4 portals opened beside my left hand. Through them, I saw Odell unlock the main tower, arena, East Hall, and old dormitory batteries. Each supplied 20 units, 4 anchors, 80 mana. The 5th battery at my feet contained nothing. We needed 100. Amaya's voice came through my cracked measuring lens. Fold the star's 5 triangles upward around its central pentagon, Amaya said. Then reverse the arrival circle and use it as the roof. One transformation would turn the flat star into an inverted pentagonal prison. It required exactly 100 units of edit power. We had 80. The charge reached 90%. The black finger pushed farther through the sky. It entered the hollow chamber without breaking the roof because the roof existed in another plane. A silver nail longer than my body scraped across the floor. An eye opened above it. Valor looked at me. His voice came from every line in the building. "A little editor," he said. "The wardens built circles. You found the corners they feared." Pressure forced me to one knee. The god's attention alone carried more mana than every spell I had seen. "Give me your hand," Valor said. "I will let you edit the laws beneath the shapes." It was not a second-class offer. It was a leash covered in gold. "You are already having trouble fitting one finger through the door," I said. "I will wait for a better offer." The eye narrowed. The star reached 95%. In the yard, students blocked guards from Amaya's relay. The people who had mocked my gray badge now protected the girl who had believed my first spark. Firos had gathered witnesses for a safe ceremony and created witnesses for his betrayal. Then Lucan struck Odell and stole the old dormitory key. Our power fell from 80 to 60, while the star reached 97%. Garen ran into view and hit Lucan with his ember harness. Lucan fell into a laundry cart before 300 witnesses and vanished under white sheets as it rolled down the stairs. "My father abandoned me," Garen said. "I decided to learn something he could not buy." He fed 20 units from his ember core into the open anchor. Our total returned to 80. "The 5th battery is empty," I said. Amaya answered immediately. "Your reservoir bracelet." My core and bracelet held 26 mana together. I fed 20 into the black floor, 100 units connected through 5 anchors. My personal mana fell to 6. The star reached 99%. Firos entered with a council staff and no smile. Re said. "If you deform the array now, the backlash may kill everyone. If I leave it alone, Valor will use my body. One life against the future of the world. You keep saying one because it is not yours." His staff fired at Celine's portals. I spent my last 6 mana on a triangular spark. Its 60 units of penetration cut the council seal from the staff, ending the beam. The seal landed inside the arrival circle, where Valor's nail crushed it into silver dust before every projection crystal. Firos stared at the ruined staff. "You cannot control this," he whispered. "Neither can you." My mana reached 0. The 5 batteries had to supply the edit. I touched the black circle. Celine's portals carried the contact to the other anchors. Odell held the locks, Garen fed the ember core, and Amaya counted angles. First point, 72 degrees. Second point, 144. Third point, 216. Fourth point, 288. Return to the first. The charge reached 100%. I pulled. The academy moved. The main tower bent through folded space without bending in the physical world. The 5 outer triangles of the star rose around Valor's hand. Roads became edges, halls became faces. The central pentagon turned into a base 800 meters across. 4,000 students saw transparent walls climb into the sky. The 5th point resisted. Valor pushed down. One anchor cracked. The East Hall battery fell from 20 units to 15. The prison wall opened by the width of a street. Amaya changed her calculation. Spiral the final edge. Repeat the closure 5 times. That added 5 units of complexity. We did not have 5. Firos did. His broken council staff still contained an emergency crystal. I looked at him. You wanted to save the world. Decide whether you meant it. Vaelor's eye turned toward Firos. Open the line. The god said, I will make you first among my servants. Firos had sacrificed students, laws, and truth to reach this moment. For the first time, he saw the future he had purchased. Vaelor did not see a partner. He saw a servant. Firos pulled the emergency crystal from his staff. He threw it into Celine's nearest portal. 5 units entered the star. I curled the broken edge into a spiral. It closed once, then repeated. The second layer covered the first. A third formed, then a fourth and fifth. The transparent wall locked. Vaelor roared. The sound broke every ordinary window in the academy. It drove Firos against the wall and dropped me flat. Outside, thousands of witnesses covered their ears but kept watching. The black arrival circle became the roof of the new shape. I reversed its orientation. The gate turned outward. The pentagonal prison rejected the god. Vaelor's finger slid backward through the sky. His nail caught on the final edge. Divine flesh split without blood. The severed tip fell into our world, struck the empty 5th battery, and hardened into black crystal. The rest of the hand vanished. The sky closed like an eye. For 3 seconds, the giant transparent prison remained above the academy. Every hall, road, tower, and dormitory formed one visible geometric body. Then the borrowed mana ended. The shape dissolved into morning light. The star's charge fell from 100% to 0. Silence covered 4,000 students. The first sound was Amaya crying my name through the measuring lens. The second was the city outside beginning to cheer. Cheers crossed the yard. Firos' confession had been recorded, and the complete star was burned across his white coat. He had arrived as the capital's highest authority. 4 days later, guards arrested him inside his own gate. Before the city, he had deceived. His last 5 mana had still saved lives. I remembered that. My right hand had turned black from fingertip to wrist. The system measured severe geometric overload. My class remained intact, but the active channels in that hand would require 30 days to recover. Until then, I could not edit even a breakfast circle. Power had sent me from touching 1 weak spark to reshaping an 800-meter divine gate with 100 borrowed mana. The price was losing that power for a month. I could accept a fair bill. The Academy Council met before noon with open doors. Lucan faced trial. Garen's suspension fell to 30 days. Odell took control of the construction archive. Celine became acting head, and Amaya accepted a research title as soon as it included free library access. The city paid me a 1,000 gold emergency reward from seized council funds. My public ranking moved from 7th to 1st. The title beside my name changed from auxiliary copyist to emergency architect. 4 days earlier, I had owned 1 copper coin and an 8-unit spark. Now I had more than 1,000 gold, the highest academy rank, 5 architectural keys, and a hand that looked like burned wood. Celebrations continued until evening. I escaped to the narrow theory kitchen where Amaya had fed me after the first trial. She had already placed a heavy pot on the stove. Beef simmered with mushrooms, onions, carrots, and dark sauce until the meat broke apart under a spoon. Small potatoes roasted beside the fire with salt and butter. A fresh loaf waited under a cloth, and honey shone in a shallow bowl. My right hand could not hold a spoon. Amaya sat across from me, filled one, and raised it toward my mouth. If you laugh, she said, I will pour it on your shirt. That would repeat our first breakfast experiment. Your spiral research is suspended. I ate the stew. It was hot, rich, and better than 1,000 gold because I could use it immediately. Celine joined us with tea. Odell brought the recovered loaf from her house. Garen appeared at the door, placed a new pair of leather finger guards on the table, and left before anyone could thank him. For a while, we talked about ordinary things. The new dormitory needed real bedrooms. The archive needed shelves. The kitchen ceiling needed repair after the morning's eyes had cracked to the plaster. When the others left, Amaya moved her chair beside mine. She checked the black lines on my hand and replaced the bandage. 30 days, she said. That is not how healing works. It is exactly how counting works. She shook her head, but she held my uninjured hand under the table. Outside, the academy ranking crystal shone through the window. My name stood at the top. Students still gathered below it, telling the story of the useless circle that had become a prison for a god. I had started at the bottom. I had chosen the worst class. I had learned that a triangle pierced, a spiral repeated, a polyhedron contained, and a reverse circle changed inside into outside. I had also learned that every victory made larger people notice me. The plate in front of me turned black. Amaya's hand tightened around mine. Every round object in the kitchen became an eye. The bowls, the cups, the pot lid, the silver coins visible through the open prize chest. Valor spoke through all of them. "Little editor," he said, "you closed one gate." The wall map unfolded by itself. 12 cities began glowing across the kingdom. 11 complete summoning stars burned beneath them. Now show me how quickly you can reach the others without your hand.